Hey guys, Dan here with this week's movie reviews. Welcome to Dan Reviews It. We've got 4 new movies for you this week, as we usually do. I kind of have to, seek them out a little more than I used to, because when the pandemic first started, the major studios were like releasing all the movies right away. So here we really only have one major movie, and that's Black is King from Beyonce. That is on Disney Plus right now. And then we also have The Rental, which is Dave Franco's directorial debut in the limited number of theaters that are open right now. It was the #1 movie last week, for whatever that's worth these days. But we'll talk about that. We also have Summerland, which is a sort of a period piece from World War II. And then one that came out a few weeks ago that I just sort of missed, Elizabeth Moss, starring as the author Shirley Jackson in the show, in the movie Shirley. I was going to call it the show. In the movie Shirley. So we will talk about all of those this week. But first up, let's talk about Beyonce and Black is King. So this is essentially a concept album, a visual album. It's being referred to of The Lion King, The Gift, which is an album that came out, I guess, last year in association with the Lion King movie. I didn't really hear much about that. I mean, I knew the one new song that she has in The Lion King, the new version, but I didn't really hear the album or anything like that. The Lion King movie of last year is not that great. I gave it a C. It's just a shot-for-shot remake of the original, so less impactful, I think, than a lot of other of the Disney live action reimaginings. But I'm not really going to review that. But obviously Beyonce was in that, and so this is the album I guess she released after that movie came out, and it includes a lot of the dialogue in the film, specifically by James Earl Jones, but there's a few other snippets, like Billy Eichner gets a little bit as well, and that kind of thing. So there's, Beyonce herself, but most of it is, I would say, generally unrelated to The Lion King, except for it loosely follows the same story, if you could call anything really a story in Black is King. And then, it has the narrations. But essentially, it follows a young African king who, is cast out from his family, so he needs to figure out who he is, where he comes from, that kind of thing, to reclaim the throne. And that's really about it. I mean, it's a very, very, very loose story, but it is there, and it connects, through the musical pieces. So most of the songs are by Beyonce, but of course there's a lot of guest stars on here. Jay-Z, of course, Pharrell is on here, Kendrick Lamar. So some famous names, and then others that I hadn't really heard of, some less than famous names as well. So in terms of Beyonce and her music, I was a fan from way back, Destiny's Child days, Irreplaceable, Who Run the World Girls, like all that kind of stuff. But quite honestly, she lost me about 7 or 8 years ago. I don't really follow her anymore. Some of her songs pop up, and I enjoy them. Like, there were a couple songs off Lemonade that I liked, but Lemonade was being heralded as like, oh my god, this is the greatest album, I feel like Beyonce is put on this pedestal that, for me personally, she doesn't fit. SNL even did a skit on it years ago about, it sort of turned it into a horror movie, where somebody said they didn't like Beyonce, and it was like, oh my god, And I'm not saying I don't like Beyonce. I think she is put on this pedestal of, one of the greatest singers of all time, one of the greatest entertainers of all time. And I will admit, her stage shows are good. I've never seen a concert, but like the Super Bowl halftime show was great, and the videos are great. So I can appreciate her as an artist, but is she the greatest of all time? Personally, I prefer Janet Jackson, if we're going to talk about specifically, black R&B and pop singers. Overall, though, people, singers, no, Michael Jackson, certainly, among some other ones. But I think Beyonce has a ton of talent. I'll give her that. And I will say I liked more of these songs certainly than I did from the Lemonade album. So I think this is more maybe for my taste. But even regardless of that, this is a visually stunning sort of thing. I mean, this is all. I don't want to use the word masterpiece because I'm not sure it's quite to that level. But music videos as an art form has come a long way in 40 years, and a lot of that is for the better, but a lot of it is for the worse because hasn't every idea been done already, with few exceptions. That's why when something like This Is America from Childish Gambino comes out, it's like this big deal because it's so inventive and so new. I used to watch VH1 late at night when they would run videos from like 2 or 3 a.m. to like 6. And that's how I would get all my music videos. MTV obviously stopped running music videos a long time ago in any sort of realistic sense. And I'm not one to really seek out videos on YouTube. So I don't really get a lot of music videos anymore. I only probably see, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, 15 new music videos a year, which is low. I mean, I used to know every video of every artist, that was out there. But it's a different world now, and you have to really want to consume these things. And I'm happier just listening to the music, in the car or whatever, than seeking out the video. So in terms of a full concept video album, I have not seen one in a very, very long time. I'm not even sure what the last one I saw would have been. The question, though, is this a film? I think we're stretching the term film to fit this visual album. Is it film length? Yeah, just about. It's like an hour and 23 minutes or something like that. 85 minutes. Yeah, okay. So that's an hour and almost an hour and a half. Hour 25 minutes. And visually, it really is stunning. But there's just the most threadbare story here, and that what is there is sort of lifted off The Lion King anyway, so it's not very original in that regard. But visually, I mean, it is just stunning. The things that she is doing here and encompassing here is, it's pretty amazing. It's some of the best music video stuff I've seen in a long time. And she's one of only 7 or 8 directors for this. So I think a lot of the segments were directed by different people. I don't know which ones specifically Beyonce herself directed. But certainly this is her, this is her project. This has got her stamp all over it. It's her deal. So it will live and fall, I think, by her vision. And one thing I do absolutely appreciate about Beyonce, even if I don't maybe fully love her music as much as I used to, I really appreciate that she uses her strong black female voice to really say something. And that's not something that a lot of people do. It's even in this day and age. I mean, you've got a few people of that caliber. I think of, certainly growing up, I mean, the strong black women in entertainment would be Whitney Houston, I guess. Certainly Oprah. I mean, that's obviously a perennial. I don't know, Felicia Rashada's Claire Huxtable maybe, but that's a character, But nobody was really using their voice to say much of anything. Whoopi Goldberg, not so much yet. That came later when she got on The View more than anything. So, Beyonce is certainly using her celebrity and her presence and her fame for good, to get her words out and feelings about things like Black Lives Matter. And, this was all obviously completed before social distancing, so who knew, at the time maybe that this would be such a perfect time to release something like this. I struggle to call it a film. That's one of my biggest issues with it. I think it is beautifully shot. A lot of the music is good. but it is, it's an album put to music videos. It is a montage of music videos. And I remember back in the day, in the 80s, the Talking Heads did something similar, and it was considered a movie. I think it certainly had more of a thread of a plot, because there was like dialogue and everything too. But this is just, it's just music videos, and granted, they are amazing, but I don't know if this is a film. So I leave Black is King with a B+. I think there's a lot of great things about it. I just struggle in calling it a movie or a film, rather than just music videos, a video album, whatever. All right, so up next we're going to talk about The Rental. This is Dave Franco's directorial debut. He does not feature as an actor in this movie. It stars people like Dan Stevens, Alison Brie, Toby Huss plays the renter, or the landlord, I guess you could say, and Sheila Vand and Jeremy Allen White play in the film as well. And basically, they're going for a rental property. They're gonna do a little vacation. These four people, two couples. It's Charlie and his brother Josh and their ladies, and they try to rent this place for a weekend getaway. Mina can't do it. Her application gets denied, and she is a person of color, so all of a sudden there's all these, is this landlord dude racist? Dan Stevens does it, and he gets accepted. So, night of drinking, a night of some debauchery, there's a little bit of cheating that goes on, and a couple of the people find a hidden camera, hidden recording device in the shower. Start freaking out. Obviously they're already having issues with this landlord who they think is, racist, is a jerk, whatever. Certainly creepy. And again, that's played by Toby Huss, who... Toby Huss is a name I know a lot because he does a lot of voice acting, but I never quite remember who he is. But he plays on Seinfeld. He plays the I'm the Wiz guy. So if you're a Seinfeld fan, you've seen this dude for 20, 25 years in different TV shows and movies. And he can be funny, certainly, but he can also come across as creepy, as we've seen in a couple other things. This movie is just all over the place. Dave Franco, I do think, because he came from the world of acting, gets some interesting performances from people, although, look, Alison Brie, I used to really not like her. But after Glow, I became a fan, and I don't think she needs a ton of direction, Dan Stevens, similarly maybe. I've only seen him in a couple things, but they throw a bunch of cliches out at you. The whole racist subplot just lingers constantly throughout this movie, and it seems so like, it's 2020, let's be woke. I'm sure they made it in 2019, but still, being woke and all these hip terms. I feel like Dave Franco was just like, how can we do a movie that's so woke, but also so, cool and dangerous? And it starts out with some interesting ideas, and then goes into this, like, drama, like this relationship drama, for a good 45 minutes maybe, and then at the very last 15 just turns it completely on its head, and it becomes a slasher movie, which it wasn't at all. It wasn't even, the horror wasn't even really there, the thriller part wasn't even really there, and then at the end they're like, oh, I forgot this was a horror movie, let's throw a slasher in there. It's got all of these different parts, and I would say none of them necessarily work separately, and they certainly don't all work together. I think Franco may be a good director in time. I'm not sure. Look, here's the thing. He is gonna forever be in the shadow of Big Brother James. And where I think he outshines James is comedies. When you see Dave Franco in, the Jump Street movies, or trying to think of what he's done that's comedy. I was just looking at that movie Nerve yesterday, which is not a comedy, but he was in that. All right, maybe oh, Neighbors. There you go. Okay, there's another one. So he's got a couple of really good, funny movies, and James Franco can be funny, but I think Dave outshines him there. I think James is better at drama. Even James's directing, I think, is a little out there. The couple movies that I've seen that he directed are very like avant-garde. Like they're certainly not mainstream movies. This is definitely trying to be a mainstream movie. It's just not really excelling because it's too many mainstream movies at once, and definitely too many ideas to spoil the pot. So I leave The Rental with a D+. So up next we're going to go to Summerland. This is a movie about Alice Lamb, who is played by Gemma Arterton, and this is something I didn't really know before, but apparently back in England in World War II, they had the London Blitz, which basically was, kids that were homeless, displaced from their homes, their parents died, whatever, in the war because of the bombings. They were just sent to other homes and whatever. So maybe I've seen this in other movies and I'm not remembering. But anyway, so this young boy, Frank, played by Lucas Bond, who is someone I do not recognize. He seems fairly new to the scene. He is basically, entrusted to this woman, Alice, who is a very, reclusive person. People do not really like her in the, the neighborhood. Kids make fun of her and call her a witch and all this kind of stuff. And she has spent years trying to seclude herself, and all of a sudden this boy, Frank, is just dropped at her doorstep. So she's a writer, and so she doesn't really ever have to leave the house except, I guess, to go food shopping or something. But she doesn't want to take him in. She's like, oh, this is going to be bad for my writing career. It's going to make me lose tons of focus. Plus I hate people and I hate kids and all of this. But she ends up kind of bonding with Frank, and it brings up a ton of things from her own past, including some things with this old friend of hers, Vera, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, in flashback scenes from back when they were both in college. So that's generally the plot here. Gemma Arterton is somebody I don't really know that well. Again, I know the name, but in terms, I know she played a Bond girl, but a lot of the things I've seen her in, she's just very minor. She was in Pirate Radio, and she was what else was she in? Oh, well, she played Gretel in Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, but that movie is so freaking forgettable. She had a small role in the Adam Sandler movie Murder Mystery, so it's she's popped up, but I'm waiting for her to really pop out and be a bigger name, because I do think she's talented in the few things I've seen her in, but she's really good here. She really embodies this this very sort of put upon woman. My biggest issue with the movie, though, is not in the performances. It is in the pacing and the plot. Essentially, the plot devices are easy to figure out. They're some of the quote unquote twists are easily telegraphed. And I found myself a bit bored with the movie. However, it is beautiful to look at. The cinematography on this is great. This is directed by Jessica Swale. I'm going to say her name is, or Swale, but I think it's Swale. But she goes back with Gemma Arterton from the European stage. But this is, I want to say, is it her first movie? Yeah, I mean, she's known mostly for theater stuff, so this seems to be her first movie that she's directed. And I think in that sense, yes, the pacing is not great. It's a little bit boring in parts, but it is definitely lush. It's beautiful, beautiful scenery. And for those of us like myself who have been craving more than just a weekend trip to the beach in the pandemic, it was very nice to sort of get away on a little European vacation for a couple of hours. But the problem is the movie involved is not nearly as compelling as I wanted it to be. I do think that Lucas Bond is a good little actor too, and he has a nice chemistry with Arterton in that regard. My biggest complaint, I would say, about the movie is that Gugu Mbatha Raw's character, not only do we not see enough of her, because there's just not enough flashbacks, I would have liked to see it be more of sort of a two-hander of a story. But, again, the scenes with her, I don't want to give too much away because I don't do spoilers, but there's like something that I think is supposed to be like a big twist, and it just, to me, wasn't. Like, it was telegraphed a mile away. But I love Gugu Mbatha Raw. She is one of the finest, like, underrated actresses. She's in this great movie. It's got to be up here because it's in the Bees. Belle, it's called. It might be upstairs. But anyway, she plays, this beautiful, beautiful woman from the 1800s, and it's just such a good movie. But she's been in a couple of things lately. I mean, her star is certainly rising. What was she in most recently that I saw her in? Well, she was in Motherless Brooklyn, but I didn't see that. Oh, yeah, Wrinkle in Time. Okay, well, she's not in that very much either. She plays the mom. Okay, Miss Sloane. Oh, Free State of Jones. She was good in that. Concussion. All right, so, yeah, I mean, she's been in a bunch of these, movies, usually playing the side character, the wife, the whatever, and here she's the side character again, and put way to the side, unfortunately, for the movie. So, I think if you love European, scenery and stuff, maybe you'll enjoy this movie more on that surface, because it is gorgeous to look at, and the two leads are great, but the movie definitely has some flaws too. So I'm going to leave Summerland with a B-. So finally we come to Shirley. This is available on, is it Hulu or Amazon? I forget. But this is one of these that you can get for free if you subscribe to the thing. And let's see. It's not telling me. I think it was Hulu that I watched it on. I honestly can't remember though. But anyway, it's Elizabeth Moss as Shirley. She's Shirley Jackson, the author of most famously The Lottery, which is, God, one of my favorite books, or short stories, I guess. And that's one that I read, back in, I don't know, 9th or 10th grade, and it really stuck with me. Like, I would like to go back and read it. In fact, after watching this movie, I was looking up, like, other works of hers, and there's a big collection in October coming out with, like, all of her books and a bunch of her short stories. So that might be interesting. But basically, this takes place sort of in her mid-level of success. The Lottery had already been written, but a lot of her other famous horror works to come had not been. Like House on Haunted Hill or something. That's basically what this movie turns into, I guess. Like the impetus for that story is supposedly from things that are happening in this movie. I think it's the Haunting at Hill House, that's what it is, which, Steven Spielberg has called one of the greatest books of, the 20th century. So, this was between The Lottery and that book, because this is sort of what theoretically inspired that book. But she plays Shirley Jackson, and her husband is played by Michael Stuhlbarg, who, I love whenever he pops up. He's one of the most, underrated sort of that guy type actors out there. He's in so many things. You've seen him in, God, what can I say that you've seen him in? Arrival, Doctor Strange, Blue Jasmine, Lincoln, the Steve Jobs movie, Trumbo. He plays a lot of like real life people. The Post, boy, yeah, a ton of real life people. But he's just got this like commanding presence whenever he shows up. So a young couple moves in with Shirley and her husband. In the hopes of sort of starting a new life. They're, college people. It's Odessa Young and Logan Lerman play them. Odessa Young, I have not seen too much in things. Logan Lerman I go back with from, God, Jack and Bobby, the TV show from like 2005 on whatever the CW was before it. I guess the WB it was on. And then, of course, he was in Perks of Being a Wallflower and the Percy Jackson movies and all these things. So we've seen him a lot. But instead of finding, some solitude and some maybe culture with Shirley and her husband. The couple soon realizes that they are embroiled in sort of a bunch of like marriage problems and alcoholism and all of this, but B, the inner workings of Ms. Jackson's mind, which are the basis for the Haunting at Hill House book. And so we see the slow descent kind of into madness, I guess you could say, to coin a popular phrase, in this movie. And Elizabeth Moss, I gotta say, I knew the name because I knew she's in The Handmaid's Tale, but I've never seen Handmaid's Tale, I've never seen Mad Men, but I loved The Invisible Man from earlier this year. Like, it was one of my top movies of the year. I gave it an A. So good. This is a far cry from that, but the fact remains that Elizabeth Moss is very compelling to watch on screen, whatever she's doing. And this is certainly a whole nother character from Invisible Man. So, these are sort of the two things I have to go off. I'm sure I've seen her in, like, other things. Let's see here. I mean, those two, Mad Men and The Handmaid's Tale obviously are, like, the main thing she's known for. But let's see, what else I've seen. I mean, okay, I've seen her in... She had real small roles in Get Him to the Greek and movies around that time that just aren't that good. She was in Us. Okay. Oh, yeah, she was. Okay. The Kitchen was not a good movie. I saw that last year. Alright, so that's about it. Oh, she was in The West Wing. There's another one that I've not seen. Zoe Bartlett, which means she must be President Bartlett's daughter, I guess. She was in 25 episodes of that. I've not seen that either. So I know, I'm really, like, missing out on the Elizabeth Moss stuff. And these are all things that I do want to watch one of these days. Not just because of Elizabeth Moss, just because I've always heard how great they are. Handmaid's Tale, I've been told to watch, but that I can't, like, binge it. And I'm not much of a binger anyway, but I've been told, like, you just have to take that one episode at a time because it's so heavy. But anyway, I know people that, like, just love that show. So she's great here. This is a very different character than we saw her in earlier this year in Invisible Man. The problem is this plot is very, very convoluted. There's so much going on. And again, just like the Gugu and Botha Ross stuff, I don't think we spent nearly enough time with the Logan Lerman and Odessa Young characters. They're there. But the story for this is just all over the place. We never get really a clear cut thing of, like, what's real and what's in her mind to create this story, or maybe all of it's real, or maybe all of it's in her mind. Like, we never really, I didn't think, get a full resolution on that. Her and Michael Stuhlbarg do have great chemistry, though, as husband and wife, and you really believe that they have been through, maybe a couple decades by this point of just sort of hating each other, and, but I don't know. But what's interesting is, so her kid, one of her kids anyway, came out about this movie and was like, this is not a fair representation of my parents, And quite honestly, like, I feel like the kids aren't even in the movie at all. Maybe they're not. And the couple is supposed to, like, represent the kids, because there was no, like, real couple that lived with them. That was made up for the movie. So I don't know. Like, it's very odd. But for a biopic, I will say that it definitely takes some chances, which I liked. I'm not sure all of them paid off. In fact, I would say they did not all pay off. But it definitely is unique in a biopic to just not be fairly straightforward, this is what happened, and it makes sense because she is a horror writer, she's a thriller writer, so it would make sense that the filmmakers would want to make this more of a horror or a thriller film. I'm not sure if what they have on the screen here is up to snuff with some of her great works, but I found it to be enjoyable enough, if not kind of scattershot in the plot dynamics, but there's no denying that she is really a great actress. I'm glad that people in the film world are starting to see it outside of the TV world, which, yes, I know, I got to get on all these Elizabeth Moss shows. I didn't even know she was on The West Wing. That is news to me. So that's another one. But I have the DVD of that I just haven't sat down with yet. So I will leave Shirley with a C plus. Like I sort of am on that. Like it might be a B minus, might be a C plus. It's very very convoluted and out there. But I will say that it is unique for a biopic, and that was one good thing about it. But it's kind of a mess, to be honest. It's a little hard to follow. But so that's going to do it for this week. Next week, I think it's going to be all Netflix again. I every 2 or 3 weeks, I go back and just do all Netflix movies because they release so many movies that by 2 or 3 weeks' time, there's easily 4 to check out. I forget what some of the big ones are that have dropped in the last week or two, but I'm sure they're out there. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have Bill and Ted's, or Bill and Ted Save the World, I guess it's called. And then it was just announced yesterday that Mulan is going to now debut on Disney Plus for a premium $30 price, which is a bit steep, but, you know, I don't know. When you consider even going to the movies with 2 people and you buy 1 soda, a box of candy, and 2 movie tickets, that's $30, you know, and that's before the popcorn. So, you know, look, Mulan is a family movie. I think the 30-point price tag is actually not that steep, personally, but I also am just by myself, so I may try and hit up my sister-in-law, my nephews, and try and go over there and watch it with them. But anyway, I will have that in, I guess, about a month's time as well. The X-Men New Mutants is coming out at the end of August, so there are a few big movies that have been shelved from theaters, as we see that theaters are still just not opening anytime soon. But next week, I think we'll be doing all Netflix, so enjoy that. We have a bunch of other videos up if you are into Disney. Speaking of Mulan, I just did another Dan Does Disney with Tim yesterday about the original 1952 live-action Robin Hood, not the cartoon. It's very interesting. We kind of compare and contrast all the different Robin Hoods a little bit with that one. So that was interesting. I'll have another Freaks and Geeks episode review on Friday with my buddy Joe. And we'll be back next week with more movies. So thanks for watching. Comment below. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't. And thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.